Thank you for tuning in to Smarter Than Yesterday. Today with myself, you're going to be learning about leadership, building resilience, building confidence, and everything that I've learned as a military officer in the last 6 years, whilst also managing an online fitness company, helping a lot of people build muscle, lose fat, and overall become a lot better versions of themselves. I've always wanted to do that.
Fantastic. Jack, welcome to the podcast, mate. How's it going?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you very much both for having me on board.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, we don't need to lie. You've been here before. We're back again. We're back stronger, as I'd say.
So nice. We did it twice with some audio issues last time, which hopefully have been rectified, which we've just tested. So we're good to go, thankfully.
Yeah, we're definitely not synchronized swimmers, are we?
Definitely not.
All right, Jack. If you wouldn't mind, could you just give us a little introduction to who you are and, what's your story?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Jack. I was born and raised on the south coast in a town called Poole. I'm 29 years old and I'm currently an engineering officer in the Royal Air Force. I also run my online coaching business to help people build muscle, lose fat, and improve their running as well. From the age of about 14, 15, I've always had a passion for fitness, maths, and physics. The maths and physics side of things led me to sort of pursue a career in engineering. So when I was at 15, I went to a careers fair at secondary school to understand what I wanted to do with my life or what the next steps for me were going to be. I always thought they were going to be A-levels, but wasn't necessarily sure on where that was going to be. I saw in the hall a stand for a college called Welbeck Defence Sixth Form College, which is a military boarding school for aspiring engineering officers and logistic officers. So I went up to them and they sort of explained the purpose of their school, what they do, and essentially they sponsored engineering students and logistics future officers through school, A-levels, university, after which you would pursue a career in the military as an officer. So I went to that military boarding school for 2 years, which was absolutely incredible. Really, really enjoyed it. And then subsequently went to university in Newcastle. Chose that city because all of my friends went there. And I know that they say don't pick a university that all your friends go to, but that's exactly what I did. So I did a master's in engineering for 4 years. But when I got to university, the deal with the military boarding school was that you stayed on the cadet scheme for the whole 4 years. But I quickly realised that I wasn't ready, nor did I want to go straight in after university into a military career. I wanted to have some time off, go travelling, sort of find out a bit more about myself and who I am. So I stepped away from the scheme, went travelling after university, did Southeast Asia like a lot of post-university students. It was absolutely incredible. When I came back, I decided I still didn't want to go into the military at that time. So I had a graduate electrical engineer job, did that for about 18 months, and then decided now is the time that I joined the military, and I've been in there ever since.
Well, that's a story in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Straight away,
Yeah, we've got a lot to unpick there.
A lot to unpick. So let's go right back to the beginning. So tell me a bit more about your Newcastle uni days then.
Newcastle, obviously where you went to university. Where were you born? Where did you live before that?
So I was born and raised in Poole. So I basically picked the furthest university in England away. And when I told my mum I was going to university in Newcastle, she was like, "Where?" And I was like, "I'm so sorry that it's so far away."
You heard party time, and you
basically
thought,
party time, and all my friends were going, and there was 15, 16 of us all going. So we thought this is the place to be. Yeah. And in Newcastle, you've got two universities. So you've got Uni of Newcastle, and then you've got Northumbria University. Both are pretty good for engineering. So I decided to go to Newcastle. But like I say, all of my friends were split between those two unis. So it was amazing. All the people that you went through the military boarding school with, did exercises with, living away from home. That was essentially a continuation. But it's big boy rules, student loan, all that sort of stuff. So it's really, really fun. So I did a master's in electrical engineering, with a placement in my final year in industry. So it gave me that work experience alongside my university degree, which was really, really valuable and helped give me the skills to sort of pursue or find a job after university in the similar industry. So Newcastle was amazing. I was quite heavy into the gym during this period. Didn't really do any running because I, to be honest, only really cared about lifting weights and sort of how that made me feel. After university, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a short period, I decided to take on running and expand the performance of my body and see what else I could possibly do. But university at Newcastle was amazing, very, very social. Gyms were great, the lifestyle was great. The mega bus home from Newcastle, because it was £5, was 12 hours. Because it stopped in every major city on the way home. So you're sat there, probably hungover on a Friday, thinking I've got to go home and buy a 12-hour mega bus. So but it was amazing.
I was going to ask you how long was that commute? And I mean, I'm sure by plane or by car or even train would be quicker, but a £5 megabus, you can't go wrong with that, can you?
It's honestly robbery. And I've never actually flown from Newcastle to the south because there was no direct flights which I could have seen or during that time from Newcastle to Bournemouth or the nearest hotel airport in Southampton, so I couldn't find any. So it was the megabus, and I couldn't afford the train at the time. Even though I was going through university with 3 or 4 jobs at any one time, I just spent my money on other stuff, and I thought, I can firm it for 12 hours. It's just revise for 12 hours on that megabus, and it's good to go.
And so you've loosely sort of opened up the conversation around training, gym, and you mentioned then it was all weights. It was the sort of gym body look, Dorito, just training heavy weights really. What was it that made you decide to, do a bit of running for a change?
Sure. So to go back a little bit, so I started training at 15, and the gym that I was going to, you had to be 16 to go. So I would actually change the date of birth on my application form to make sure that I could go, because I had a friend that was 1 month older that started going before me. His name's Liam, and he sort of took me into the gym, and we just basically did bench press, upper body for 2 or 3 years, and then after a period of time, people would mention you also need to train the lower body as well. So it's kind of a fitness arc where you start an upper body doing chest and arms, and then you slowly develop and grow up, and you think, I should probably train legs because there's definitely a huge benefit there. And then I essentially just bodybuilded style training throughout university. And then during COVID, when they shut all the gyms, there was no physical outlet for me to basically de-stress from work, and just sort of going from training 5-6 times a week to nothing isn't really feasible, and press-ups in the garden will only get you so far, in my personal opinion. So I decided to take up running, and I've always, at this period, avoided cardio, because even when I joined the military, I would just do the bare minimum to pass the test, because it was really hard, and I was never really good at it because I didn't really play much sport when I was younger. So I thought, right, let's just crack this, because the more you do something, the likelihood is you're going to get better at it and therefore enjoy it more. So decided to just run 1, 2, 3 miles at a time and slowly build up the mileage. And it got to a point where I could, sort of bang out 5 or 10K at a pretty reasonable pace. So I thought there might be something in this. And I was watching my muscles sort of disappear, but there was nothing I could really do about it. So I just thought, right, let's go all in on the running. So then I slowly built up to the distance of a half marathon. I think my first time was 2 hours 10, and I was just so happy and ecstatic to complete that distance. After which I decided to set myself a challenge that every month that the gyms were shut, I would run a half marathon. So I was doing that. I think I got my time down to like 1 hour 45, and I was really happy with that time as an ex-gym goer. And my friend Cam is my best friend and is going to be the best man at my wedding now, actually. He was also doing the same thing, because can't gym anymore, started running. And I remember he was on a 20-mile run, and I called him because I had him on with my friends. I said, bro, don't run a full marathon. Let's do this for charity, blah, blah, blah. So we decided to run the Great North Run. But since it was cancelled during COVID, we decided to do the route backwards. So from Newcastle City Centre down to, I think it's Tynemouth, and then back. It's the largest half marathon in the UK. And we decided to do that route twice. And on the way back, it was really, really windy. And we decided to do it to raise money for a charity close to both of our hearts. And we managed to raise a good amount of money. But I'll never forget doing the half marathon, having a gel, which was the first ever time, had caffeine in it. I thought, wow, this is amazing. Turning around, wind in face. And I was just thinking, 21K to go. But that was the sort of running journey. And when they opened the gyms, I slowly phased back to lifting weights, because I think it's really important to improve your body's resilience. Not just the way you look, but also there's strong scientific studies that show a correlation between lifting weights, longevity, and like a greater quality of life. So now I've just tried to find the balance between lifting weights, running, and that naturally evolved into a few other things, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Cool. So you've done half marathon distance. You fancy coming and join me for a longer one?
Well, when I see your longer ones, I think, wow, you're doing like 50, 60 Ks. And I think you mentioned before this podcast, you're going to be running 120 miles. That might be a bit out of my range for now. That's not to say it's a never in the future. But what I am doing is with my gym, we're going to run from Edinburgh all the way to Hereford to sort of raise money for charity, and we're doing that as like a team relay. No megabus, unfortunately, this time, even though I think us running might be quicker because there'll be no stopping every major city.
Beat the megabus.
Yeah,
so it's like a relay.
Yeah, it's a relay. So we're not doing it ourselves because.
Oh, you like?
Yeah, I think you said last time you're like you could do it so easy to do that in a 1 hour.
How many miles is it?
570K, which is about 340 miles, I think, roughly off the top of my head.
That's okay as a relay.
Yeah,
Give him that.
we're going to do it in 4 kilometers.
That's good.
He's so not happy with that. He's like,
He's burning inside.
I
I
reckon
know.
a duo at least.
Yeah, I think,
when is it?
so we're doing it end of May, but the furthest distance I've ran is a marathon, and
Oh.
that was a few years ago. So
A couple of weeks before Enjoy. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
no.
yeah, so but we're going to do that as a relay, and I think 4 or 5 kilometer stints together, and it's sponsored by Hero, which should be really, really good, and it being my first experience of doing something that long. I think it's like 4 or 5 days. My only other thing that I can compare that to is we did the UK 3 Peak Challenge, and I would say that's probably one of the hardest things I've done. Physically, yes, but mentally it was very, very difficult because we started in Snowdon, the tallest mountain in Scotland, then moved to Scafell Pike. Ben Nevis in Scotland, then moved to Scafell Pike, and then moved to Snowdon in Wales.
Yeah.
I remember thinking Ben Nevis was so good. We ran up and down in no time because we were so excited. Got to Scafell Pike, morale had dipped quite a bit, and we were in this convoy of cars, stuffed in these cars. There was a support car which had basically peanut butter baguettes on tap. And Scafell Pike was okay, not as fun. Get to Snowdon, oh boy, that was emotional. Everyone gets out the car, so many like squeaky knees, squeaky legs, and it's thinking, wow, and it took us a long time. But we managed to do all 3 peaks in 22 hours 50.
Cool.
And that was like one of my first introductions, I suppose, to endurance as such.
Yeah, it
Which is one of those things where I never really had exposure to, nor had I trained for it. Because we just thought, yeah, we're 22, 23 years old, we'll just wing this. Turns out you can wing it, but it hurts.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to want that route off you from Edinburgh to
Yeah,
Hereford.
22 hours 50 is your time to beat, mate.
No, the Edinburgh to Hereford route. I need to take that running route off you.
Yeah, we'll do the 3 peaks. We'll cycle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in between.
Yeah.
And then there's vehicles.
There's a few speed bumps,
Yeah.
it's not too bad.
Tandem.
All good.
You get a tandem.
The tandem,
We're doing it. Yeah. Tandem bike.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me. Okay, take me to this military career. Obviously, the military now. Obviously, discuss it a little bit. What led you to that military career, and as an officer in particular?
Sure. So I mentioned that I went to the careers fair in school, went to Warburg Defensive from college, and that from the outset sponsors you to be an officer in the Air Force or in the military as such, because it sponsors people from all 3 services, so the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force.
So, what age was that?
That was 15, and you arrived at your 16th birthday.
And you
roughly.
already knew at that stage, though, you want to be a leader. Because obviously, straight for an officer, you think, I'm going to lead people at the end of this.
So at the time, that's what I thought I wanted to do straight away. So I thought it's quite a big thing as a 16-year-old to leave home, go to a military boarding school, which is sponsored by the MOD, which is a really good scheme, and then decide, this is what I want to do for the next 12 years, because that's what you initially sign up to do, is 12 years, your initial commission. When you do the 2 years at Warburg Defensive from college, they try and teach you as an officer cadet what you're going to be expected to do. So you'll develop your field craft, you'll develop your weapons handling and your leadership ability. And they nurture that, and they understand that every officer isn't always the same. You don't want cookie cutter officers. You want people that are diverse in thinking and have different ways to approach a challenge. So that was really good, and it sort of brings out your strengths and weaknesses and helps you refine your weaknesses and develop your strengths. When I got to university, like I mentioned, I felt that I wasn't ready in myself because I wanted to go around and explore the world more before I jumped straight into a career. Essentially, I wanted to go traveling and have a bit more freedom before I did join. When I did rejoin, when you go through phase 1, which is RAF Cromwell, initial officer training, which is split into 4 modules. So the first module is MSM, which is military skills module. So taking you from a civilian to someone that is militarily capable. So field craft, weapons handling, military exercises, all these sorts of things, 6 weeks. And then the second and third term are developmental terms. So they develop your leadership ability. And then the final term is consolidation, which assesses your leadership and makes sure that everything you've learned over the past 18 weeks, you're a credible military officer ready to be let out into the world of the military. So went through all that. I loved every second. It's very, very challenging, very demanding. Again, being away from home in an environment with people that you've never met before, and everyone comes from different backgrounds. So that is fantastic because I have some of my closest friends that I've met, and we're still very close to this day. So that was beautiful, and I really, really enjoyed every single process of that. And after you do phase 1, you do phase 2, which is engineering officer training. So that's, again, 6 months where they take you from a military officer to an engineering officer. So you do that for 6 months. I have Cosford, and that involves things like assessments, develops your ability to understand engineering systems and processes, loads of assessments, and then after that you're then deployed into the big bad world, into your main job. And every job posting is lasting around 2 years. You'll do some deployments as well. So I was fortunate to be posted from that role straight into a leadership role, commanding initially 40 people, and then in my second year 60 people. And that was a big challenge because as a 25-year-old first tourist engineering officer in charge of people that are 5, 10, 15 years older than you, more experienced than you, you sort of have a level of imposter syndrome where you think, how am I in a position where I'm sort of leading and commanding such a large number of people? So so leading and commanding 60 people, dealing with a diverse engineering, disciplinary, welfare issues, that forced me to grow. So I would say in those 2 years, more than anything else that I've experienced, because you're immediately put into the limelight as to say, boss, like, this is what we need to do. This has happened. What are we going to do? And I would say command or management gave me the highest highs or the lowest lows. And by that, I mean, it gave me some of the best moments and the proudest moments of my life, seeing members of my team do so well, but also the lowest lows as well. So with that comes extreme challenges, which, have severe knock-on consequences.
Yeah. So obviously leading 40 to 60 blokes, how do you kind of control that amount of people? Do you go in kind of, I am the big boss here, or do you try and get their respect, or how do you go about that, in a military environment?
Sure. So it wasn't just blokes, it was a mixture of males and females, 40 to 60 people, very, very capable and amazing team. It's a challenge. I think going from no experience, I've done a bit of training, to, okay, I'm the boss. I personally would never go into a situation and say, I'm the boss, this is how things are going to be done. What I did was, when I first got there was a team of seniors as well. And you would go in, you would learn from them and come sort of to them and say, hi, I'm pretty new at this. Like, I've been chosen to be an officer for these reasons. I don't really know much about what we're doing here. And then slowly over time, you build your knowledge and build your understanding of how that works. And I think to go somewhere and expect respect is flawed, in the sense that you get there, you demonstrate competence, or you demonstrate a willingness to learn, and that respect then develops over time, without obviously showing a natural form of respect to anyone that you would normally show. But I think that was a big challenge. But like I say, in those first 6 months was a baptism of fire, because you're going from knowing very little to, okay, I think I know what I'm kind of doing. And it took me around 6 to 9 months to fully understand what I was doing. And then you get to know faces. And like, one of the main things, and one of my best pieces of advice I could give to anyone who wants to be a manager or a leader, is get to know your team, get to know the names, get to know the names of their partners, the names of their pets, the names of their kids. And if you come in and say, hi, Alex, how is Amelia doing today, for example, they'll think, wow, they really do care. And actually, if you show a genuine interest, it makes the whole job easier. People will trust you more. And that's like one of the main things I learned from that process.
Yeah. Cool.
Has leadership always been in you, or has there been a role model in your life, or anyone that's sort of shown you that way?
That's a really interesting question. My dad was the first person to suggest that I should potentially join the Air Force, but my inkling or sort of tendency towards leadership, I suppose, is derived from my levels of communication. I really enjoy being with people, and I really enjoy sort of being that person to lead by example and to basically try things first. I always like organising social events amongst friends once I was younger. Always enjoyed sort of leading games in the playground. So I thought, I think I might have a knack for this. And I think that no one really feels they want to be a leader. I personally didn't anyway. And it's just naturally developed over time, because I always had these likes and interests and sort of organising things amongst my friends, and people would come to me for advice, and I would love helping them and helping people become the best version of themselves. And I thought, maybe there's a knack in this, and I think I could be quite good. So that sort of developed. And then, as I mentioned, when you're going through phase 1 and phase 2 training, these skills and these foundations of leadership are developed quite rigorously. So that was pretty fun.
Cool. How long have you been in the military now?
Nearly 6 years. Nearly 6 years.
Okay, so you're in there for the long haul?
I think so, yeah.
Career man, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely for a couple more years.
Yeah.
I think it's challenging to say, because you never really know what's around the corner, and I think different challenges and opportunities present themselves at random intervals, so you never really know.
Brilliant.
Talking about different challenges and different opportunities, you're, from what we see, quite big on growth and learning new things, and I believe from what I've seen of you online, that's quite important to you. So I know I've seen you talking about Spanish. I saw that on Instagram today.
See?
I saw that you were I saw that you were snowboarding recently. You said that was new. I also see that you were attempting to snowboard and tasting the snow.
Pretty good now.
And I also have seen you've tried to get into some cleats on a bike. So yeah, I mean, start with any three of those.
I think they're three very interesting stories, which I can try and link them together. So firstly, Spanish. So my mum moved to Spain about 5 years ago, and I've always, whenever I've gone to Spain, felt that it was very nice. The people are really friendly. It feels like a second home or like a third home sometimes. So when I went through school doing GCSE Spanish, I, for some reason, gave more attention to GCSE Spanish alongside maths and physics, of course. And I really enjoyed the language, and I felt that there was a connection between English and Spanish that I could sort of understand. And when you look at a sentence, it sort of made a bit more sense than other languages. So naturally followed that. And then after GCSEs, I didn't really touch Spanish again. And then this year I set myself some new challenges, and last year, which are still ongoing. And the one last year was to pick up learning Spanish again. So I thought, wow, let's do this. And I found a tutor in where I live, and she was absolutely amazing and got me on the path. And I'm slowly having more and more understanding of the language, and my minimum, my non-negotiable is two lessons a week, because I think putting yourself in a situation where you're so unfamiliar, like speaking English on a day-to-day basis, and then to try and learn another language, I think it's incredible. My sister she was 11 when she moved over to Spain. I went out there in January to see her when she moved over. She couldn't speak any Spanish. Went out again in October for my birthday, fluent. Wow. And I was just thinking, wow, that is insane. And I think as we get older, we have more things to deal with, like families, work, and that sort of stuff. So we can't always dedicate the same amount of time and resource to it. But actually, if you separate 1 or 2 hours away from the screen a week and dedicate it to developing a language, I think that's invaluable. So I would say that I'm at an okay level now. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm trying to listen to things in Spanish. And whenever I go see my sister, her phone is fully in Spanish, and I think one day I'd love to be able to do that. But if I start pumping out Spanish content, my friends won't know what I'm saying. So I have to put some subtitles on.
Reaching a new audience.
Yeah, that's actually very true.
I think it's incredible learning and speaking another language. Like I said, I struggle with English, but I go on holiday, for instance, and you see these people, the reps that can speak 5, 6 fluent. I'm like,
insane.
Why?
Yeah.
How have you stored that in your brain? It's
I
phenomenal.
read a page of a book, and by the time I'm on the second page, it's gone.
I'm not one of those. I've been to Lanzarote recently. I was at training camp, and I go out there and I think, right, this is my chance, and I start trying to learn stuff. But then,
hola, 12 veces.
I'm like,
I feel like
guapa.
if you have
hola, guapo.
Yeah, nice.
a few more beers, you start getting a bit more confident with it.
But next day I'm like, what was that word again? So it doesn't store in my memory. Don't know why.
But I think with the Spanish and a lot of things in life, I think the more time you dedicate to it, and there's a thing called 10,000 hours rule, which tells you go from 0 to a really, really, really good level of understanding, competence or experience if you do 10,000 hours of it. And I'm miles off that for Spanish, but I think if you can do 2 hours a week, for a whole year, that's like 100 hours per year, which is good. The snowboarding was very interesting because I went on a ski trip when I was really young with school, and then didn't ski again until I was at university, and then got to university, and there was a really, really cheap ski trip. I think it was, I can't remember how much it was, but it was getting the coach, because we love a long coach, from Newcastle all the way to the French Alps, which is about 28 or 30 hours. And we decided as a collective group to go on that ski trip, and it reignited my love for it. So when I joined the military, because one of the main reasons I joined was because you entitled to 2 weeks of adventurous training per year. And that could be whatever you want. It could be skiing, could be whitewater rafting, kayaking. So I picked skiing for majority of those years. I developed my skiing ability to a level where I thought, wow, I'm really enjoying this. And I think one day I'll hopefully end up doing my ski instructor course. And then my girlfriend is also, my fiance now, Amy, so she is also a very good skier. So we set ourselves a challenge over the Christmas just gone. We were going to go skiing, but we thought, no, let's learn snowboarding, because there's a phrase which you may or may not have heard. And it said, skiing is easier to learn, but harder to master. And snowboarding is harder to learn, but easier to master. Didn't do either of those things. But we decided to learn snowboarding over the period of the 10 days that we were there. Wow, it was very humbling. I thought that skiing, it would translate over to snowboarding because it's on snow, on, carbon fibre or whatever it's made of. But no, that's not the case at all.
It doesn't, does it?
It's very humbling. Lots of falls, lots of bruises. But after about 4 or 5 days, we felt that we were able enough to get down one of the easy slopes, and then it developed from there. And then we just went with Amy's family to skiing, and we both did 3 days skiing, 3 days snowboarding, and that was good fun. It was nice to be able to do both. So
was that 3 days of one and then 3 days, or opposites?
3 days, 3 days.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but that was amazing. And then the cleats, third and final story, is I'm currently training for a Half Ironman, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly. I know that's your area of expertise. Yeah. Naturally, from the running progression is slowly building on the endurance side of things, going from half marathons to completing Hyroxes, and now we're going to look at doing an Ironman 70.3 or a Half Ironman. And then with the aim of doing a full Ironman at some point for the tattoo, of course. Why else would you want to do it? Because I've seen yours on your calf.
Ironman.
It was.
Yeah. So trained for that in September, and as part of that, I had to buy a bike. and understand how to cycle more efficiently alongside swimming. And I've always been able to cycle, but not efficiently in over 56 or however many miles it is to do that, 90 kilometers. So I thought, right, invest in a good bike. And by that, it includes cleats and all these sorts of things. And I'm so used to using normal push pedals. I think that's what they're called, isn't it? Normal push pedals. Sure, yeah. And see, I don't even know. Yeah. And
that sounds very American.
Yeah.
Push pedals.
Push pedals. So I bought some cleats, put them on, set my phone up because I'm documenting the journey from 0 to 70.3 as to show people what I did to learn to be able to go from someone that's done no triathlons to an Ironman 70.3. Put my phone on a bin, using my water bottle as a support. So right, I'll film this just to see how it goes. Clip in, get on the bike, straight on my ass, and it was so painful. Not only did the ego hurt, I bent both the disc brakes as well. But once I got back on the bike, I just bent them back. It's all good.
I'm going to need that clip and we can put it over.
Yeah, that'd be great. But after that, went out for a 30k ride and it was fine. So it's just about someone said to me that if you're going to go on cleats, think about 1 or 200 meters in advance. If you're coming up to a traffic light, clip out, coast, and then stop, which has been really good advice.
It won't be the last time you do it though.
I know. I'm going to get to some traffic lights and there's going to be a car next to me, a kid playing on their phone. I'm going to go straight into the window and fall on them, and I'm so sorry. Yeah.
I think going back to the 10,000 hours thing though, similarly speaking about the skiing and snowboarding and then let's say the cleats as well. When I first did the snowboarding myself, you know, when you're coming off the chairlift, when you're skiing, you just, oh yeah, we're at the top, wicked. This is the fun part now. You come to the top on the chairlift of snowboard, you're like, how am I going to get off this thing? It's the same with the cleats, right? So now, like when I'm going up to traffic, it's like, yeah, cool, I know what to do. You just put a foot on the side, slip out, no problem. But if you don't put yourself in that opportunity of discomfort, there's no opportunity for growth either, is there? And I believe, you know, you've talked about humbling yourself a few times in a few areas. Is it important to put yourself into discomfort to grow? And what does that sort of mean for you? Is it necessary for growth, discomfort?
Sure, it's a really good question. I think you sort of touched on it there. One of my favourite sayings is there's no growth in discomfort, and that sort of explains how you need to put yourself into stressful positions to develop and grow as a person, personally, professionally, physically, whatever it's going to be. And I wouldn't necessarily say you need discomfort to grow in every single case, but I think there's a level of unfamiliarity you get when you put yourself in new positions or you take your training to new levels or to new heights. Using Spanish as an example, there's no sort of physical discomfort, but there's definitely a mental discomfort there because you feel a bit silly trying to speak another language and you're trying to learn how to communicate via a means that you've never really used. Similarly, with the 70.3 training, I couldn't really swim that well. I could swim half a length with breaststroke, like treating it like a mini chest day in the pool, but any more than 25 meters or 50 meters, I would really struggle. And when I went to learn to swim, I joined a local triathlon club and you can do coach swim lessons there. And I thought, wow, that's really good. And there's 6 lanes, lane 1 being the slowest swimmers or the least able, and 6 being the dolphins and the Michael Phelpses and all that sort of stuff. So I put myself in lane 1 and it was really humbling because I thought I was okay. Completely stripped it back to basics, and there was so much discomfort in thinking, well, I thought I was an okay swimmer, but actually there's so many flaws in your technique. It's okay, strip back, learn what you need to do to get from A to B, slowly build on the technique, and naturally the speed and progression will come over time. And that was quite hard to understand, and that sort of puts you in a physical and mental discomfort. So that was really, really humbling. And now I've been going consistently for 3 months, and now I'm in lane 3, so I've graduated 2 lanes, and now I just did 1 kilometer continuously the other day. So that's definitely progress. I'm not saying the form is perfect and there's a long way to go to be able to do an Ironman 70.3, but by putting myself in that situation and unfamiliar waters, pardon the pun, it really helped me develop and enhance that ability over time.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, so that's kind of where you always take yourself back to the beginning of, you know, going from say Hyrox or CrossFit and what challenge can I do next? Is that why you come up with the 70.3? And after, like you said, after that, you perhaps will look at full Ironman. So always look at the next kind of thing that you can push yourself to, I suppose.
Sure, yeah. I think there's a part of me that because I spent 5 years doing the same thing in the gym over and over and over again, the bodybuilding training, now I'm at the point where, okay, I really enjoyed that. There's always a place in my training for that because like I mentioned earlier, there's a strong link between strength training and longevity. So that will always be part of my training. But it's also understanding, I'm 29 now, like what more can my body do? It's not just about bench press, bicep curls and all these sorts of things. There are some really, really amazing events out there. And the level of achievement you get when you run a 5K PB, or imagine when you do an Ironman 70.3, you finish the line, you think, wow, my body is incredible. There's so much more that you can do and push yourself. And I think, like I mentioned, there's no growth in discomfort, and putting yourself in situations where you're going to do things that you're not familiar with at all, I think it's really, really good. Yeah. So I think naturally there'll be a progression from the 70.3, hopefully to the full thing, if the 70.3 doesn't scare me too much. But yeah, I think that's the way we're looking.
I think I try and tell people as well, when you talk about muscle growth, it also happens up here mentally. So someone asked me last night, about going a bit further and a bit further with their running. And I said, your body has to know that it can get to there physically, but also mentally. It's just as important. We talked about that when we first spoke about my challenge in June. Mentally, you have to be able to know you can get to a place, but you're only really, I think, around 50, maybe even 40% through at that stage. So you mentioned there, you're going to smash the Half Ironman. I know you are. You're going to do great at it, and you're going to get to the end of it and go, gosh, I've got more in the tank here. And I guess asking you, what would you say to people if they think that they're at their limit with, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical challenge. We've talked about learning Spanish today. It could be, Darren said, I always think this is going to be the time I go and learn Spanish. What advice are you giving Darren, or what advice are you giving the listeners to say, you have got that bit more in the tank?
Sure. So there's this element in training called progressive overload, which I'm sure you're both aware of. And when I have clients and I onboard them, I explain them what progressive overload is. And that's essentially making small adaptations every time you do an exercise, a movement, a run, whatever it's going to be. And in a weightlifting environment, you would say, try and increase the reps or weight or increase both if you're able to. So for example, if you're doing a 5K in 25 minutes, or you're doing 60 kilos bench press for 10 reps, next time you do it, try and knock off 10, 15 seconds off that time by doing intervals. Or when you're doing weight training, okay, cool, you did 60 kilos for 10 reps. Next week, let's try and get 60 kilos for 12 reps. When you can get 12 reps, cool, I think we can up the weight a little bit. So let's go to 65 kilos at 6 to 8 reps and slowly build up that way. So you're slowly stimulating the muscles more and more each time, forcing them to adapt. And I think that can be said for a lot different areas of your life as well. So mentally, if you try and put yourself in environments where it's slightly challenging, slightly unfamiliar, not completely out of the ordinary that you're not prepared for, but I think that if you're slowly producing that stimulus, your body will adapt slowly over time. So to your point, where that individual wanted to run further and further and further, I suspect you'll say, that's amazing, let's just take it 1 to 2 kilometers at a time.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said about even just turning up each day. If you teach your brain that I got out of bed and did what I said I was going to do last night, this morning, your brain starts going, okay, you can. And when you have that little moment of self-doubt, you go, no, I've done this. I did this yesterday. I got out of bed and did it. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a big endurance challenge. It's just telling your brain, and we spoke about it before we came in. Sometimes humans need accountability buddies, or they need a coach. And that's, we're all very familiar with that. To go out and do it on your own and say, no one knows I'm doing this and I'm doing it is much, higher level of self-accountability. But even the most, some of us that are highly accountable for what we do, we still need an accountability buddy. That's why we tell people what we do. So I guess I'd suggest sometimes people need to find an accountability buddy or a coach, like what we promote massively.
Yeah, and there's to your point, there's a lot of information online about fitness, training, learning Spanish, all these sorts of things. Because of the internet, ChatGPT, whatever resource you want to use, so much information is available online. I would actually argue too much sometimes when you're just starting out in the gym or just starting out learning something. It's like, okay, how do I actually start this skill? And exactly what you said there is an accountability buddy, a coach, whatever, because they've been through the process. They know the typical pitfalls in which you can fall into, where you can waste your time, where you can optimize your time. And it's about having that sort of courage and asking for help, because a lot of information you see online may get you there, but depending on you, your lifestyle, and how you like to train, or whatever the skill is, there could be a better way for you. Yeah. And by hiring a coach, that's probably one of the best things that you could do.
Yeah, I like to move that on to kind of, you're so busy. Yeah, you're like me. People say to me, how the heck do you fit that into your life? Well, there's 25 hours in my day and it's 8 days a week. So how do you structure that around your work in particular and your training? How does it fit into your life?
Sure. So at the moment, I will often coach in the morning. So let's take Tuesday, for example. Tuesday morning, I'll wake up at 5. I'll coach at my gym from 5:45 to 7:45, 2 different classes. After that, I'll go home, eat my breakfast as fast as I can, which is the same every day because it takes the thinking out of it. I'll then go to work from about 8:30, 9 till about 5 o'clock. I'll then train at lunch for 45 minutes, so between 12 and 1. Again, finishing that, eating as quick as I can. There's a theme here. Lunch is usually the same as well. And then I'll come home. And that's like the main job. I also have my coaching business, so I help people build muscle, lose fat, improve their running, feel better about themselves. There's loads of different bits to it, but that's the crux of it. And I call it my 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5. So I finish my main job at 5, and then I do my coaching business from 5 to 9. And luckily, my fiance, she also runs a coaching business. She helps people with their gymnastics, digital marketing, and she also helps me with mine, helping people improve their training. So we do that together. And like you said about the accountability buddy, we keep each other accountable. And the days where I personally don't want to train, or she doesn't feel like doing the same, we really, really bolster each other up. So I think there's a real beauty in helping each other do that.
Yeah. Do you find time to wind down, or do you find that that's in your training, or, yourself, you and your fiance, is that your wind down time, for example?
So I love training. I see training as a physical release. And often I now sometimes train without even listening to music, because from the moment you wake up at 5 to the point in which you go to bed at 9:30, 10, your brain is constantly thinking. There's no real time where you can sit and think to yourself. And only in the last 6 months, I'd say, I would turn off the music and really listen to my thoughts and listen to what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And I think that's elements of my downtime, because I love training so much. They're the times I really take for myself. Yeah. And usually when we finish work at 9, Amy and I will have that hour and a half before bed. We won't have any more screens. I've got a couple of rules on screens that I've actioned in the last 6 months, which I'll share in a minute. But taking those distractions away and just communicating with your partner, it's been second to none. It's been really, really good for our relationship. And yeah, it's been amazing. So my rules for screens is, as soon as you wake up, no phone for 30 minutes. Because if you wake up and your first thought or your first thinking is to look at your phone and think, wow, got to do that today, got to reply to this message, got to do this, or you're scrolling straight away, you're immediately getting those dopamine receptors going in the wrong way. Whereas if you leave your phone off, go for a walk, or just have breakfast with no screen, that's been one of the biggest hacks for me, lifestyle-wise, to improve my efficiency and my work capacity for the day. And then after dinner, we'll have wind down time on the laptop, brush teeth, no more phones after brush teeth. That's like the cut-off point. And those two ends of the day are really, really valuable. And then throughout, it's because it's weird, because I actually watched this podcast and it says you sit at a big screen all day to then go home and look at a medium-sized screen whilst also being distracted with a smaller screen. And just so many screens. And it's just, if you can minimize the time in which you're looking at screens, whether that's in the gym or before work, it's so invaluable.
Yeah.
With the music, you touched on that with the music, not listening to music at the time. So I'm a massive fan of that. So when I go running sometimes,
you're not allowed to listen to music in Ironman, are you?
Yeah. So why? People do it, don't they? Or bone conductor earphones, you've got a set.
Just lock in.
But yeah, triathlon, they hate them. But I like to kind of listen what my body's telling me. Yeah. What thoughts are going through my head. How am I going to get this mind going? You listen to music, you've got the beats per minute and all that kind of stuff. But it's really good to listen to yourself, what's happening. Is that what you think about then, is it?
Yeah, because naturally, when you get into bed, if you've not done any of those things where you've not stimulated your brain, you've listened to music, you've talked all day, you've been at work, you then get into bed, that 13, 14, 15 hours you've been awake, all the thoughts that you've not had that day because you've been too busy are going to start rushing through your head at night. And that's when people struggle to sleep. And I myself have been a victim of this in the past, where I get into bed and I'm just thinking, I didn't do this, I need to do this tomorrow, I'm going on a podcast tomorrow, like all these different things that you think about. And actually, if you give yourself that breathing room throughout the day and give yourself time and capacity, when you get into bed, it's a lot easier transition to help fall asleep, because sleep is one of the best things you can do for recovery. You can't out-train bad sleep, you know.
I think there's a massive time and place for it, if you're going for that intensity session and the music helps, but you've touched on not being able to use it in races, some of the road races that go on out on the main road, you're not allowed to use headphones, even the bone conductor ones at all. But I was literally saying to somebody last night, and the 50 mile I did last year was 12 hours. I reckon there's 8 hours of that I didn't have anything on. The first sort of hour you're soaking up the atmosphere. Then Eminem comes on, because you're like, right, I've got to get into it.
Then you pick up the pace, you're like, I've got this. Yeah, you've got this.
But yeah, I mean, there are parts of it where, you turn them off because someone chats to you. Then you literally an hour later, you're like, oh, I didn't put my music back on. I find it's an opportunity for me to learn as well. I do, because I mentioned earlier about reading. Don't like reading, but I find it as my opportunity to listen and learn. So in the mornings, I'm either nothing or I've got a book on, and I learn a lot from that time. But the best place for me, I find, is the swimming pool, because you can't have it. And I need a whiteboard at the end of the swimming pool because my head just goes. But when I come out of the pool, like you mentioned, if I swim later in the evening, I sleep amazing.
Yeah.
And that's not anything to do with the swimming or the movement of the body. It's the fact that I've unloaded my brain while swimming for half an hour.
Especially when you swim 3.8 Ks in the pool non-stop. That's
Yeah.
pretty gnarly.
My brain went in many places that morning.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And that could be translated to so many different skills in life. For example, I'm trying to learn how to Olympic weightlift at the minute, and that's essentially the clean and jerk and the snatch, which are two very complex movements and they require a lot of skill and technical knowledge. Whereas if you go from normal bodybuilding, it doesn't require as much skill, certain movements anyway. You go from that to Olympic weightlifting. And my fiance, I'm still getting used to that.
Just getting used to that.
Yeah, no, we always
cut
talk about
that
this. I keep calling you my girlfriend, but you're my fiance.
Does she slap you?
Yeah, no. So she hired a coach, like we were saying earlier about hiring a coach, because she wants to learn what what are the pitfalls people get themselves into. And so she hired a coach, and then I've sort of been going with her because I'm trying to fit that around my training as well. And I'm watching her get better and better and better, and it's really, really amazing for her. Her clean and jerk is amazing. Her snatch is amazing. Can you say that? My girlfriend has a great snatch.
Yeah.
But so she's doing really well, and naturally by second order effects, I'm learning all the trickle down information from her, and my Olympic lifting is also improving. And it's teaching you about the mind muscle connection and all these different training cues. Like when you're swimming is a great example. It's like, hand in, think about the catch, and all these different elements. Whereas Olympic weightlifting, snatch, there's so many places where it could go wrong. So there's a beauty. Again, it's discomfort. It's a new skill, and you do it week in, week out. You just get better at it naturally.
Quality.
Yeah. Jack, go on.
Oh no, you go for it.
No,
mate.
I was going to say, so we've got the title of this podcast, Smarter Than Yesterday. Tell us what being smarter than yesterday means to you.
Sure. So I think smarter than yesterday is a few different facets. So first and foremost, I think it's about that continual improvement and understanding it's about trajectory, not about destination. So the journey is more important than the destination in a lot of instances. And I'll say this to a lot of my clients if they're trying to build muscle and lose fat, and we'll do fortnightly check-ins. So we'll make sure that they're staying on track. And they'll say, 2 weeks ago I was 75 kilos and now I'm 76. Like, I'm not losing fat, Jack. What's going on? And then I just think, right, let's look at the graph over the last 3 months. Zoom out, and the journey isn't always a linear scale going upwards. It's about up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And as long as the upwards trend, or the line of best fit, to sort of scientifically term it, is in that upwards trajectory, you're heading in the right way. And I think there's another element of it's progress, not perfection. So you shouldn't strive for perfection every single day, because it's just not as possible. So I think that if you're aiming to slowly improve 1% improvement a week, like that's amazing. And it's just about that continual professional development and making yourself better, whether that's personally, professionally, physically. It's just about that, improving your ability, competence, confidence, etc.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get hung up on the scales, though. I suppose, especially if they're trying to lose fat but also gain muscle, then obviously that's going to have a bit of a counter.
Yeah, and that's a common misconception actually. So what tends to happen is if I get a client that's onboarded, again they want to build muscle, lose fat, I'll put them on a weight training regime, maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on their levels of understanding. Are they an intermediate, beginner, or an advanced? In any way, in any case, if they go on a weight training schedule, it's likely that in the first 2 weeks their weight's going to spike, because the muscles are inflamed. They then flood with water, which causes inflammation that helps with recovery, and that typically causes a spike in weight. But I just always say, always at the first check-in, just trust me, give it 2 more weeks, 4 more weeks, it will dip back down. Also goes with like creatine supplementation as well. Yeah. So your weight will naturally spike at the start as your muscles retain more water. That will eventually even out. So it's just about education and like managing expectations from the outset. And some people need to understand, or it's very important to understand, that the journey is exactly a journey, and we're not going to get you results in weeks. It's going to be months and sometimes years.
Yeah,
exactly that.
I'm glad you said that, because I've just with my training, it's hard to do 3 to 4 sessions of strength a week, because obviously I've got to taper and then go back up again. But I've been able to bring in 3 sessions a week for the last 3 weeks, and my weight has gone up, and I haven't been eating anything different. So yeah, it's reassuring, when you're all talking about it, and it makes you feel that it's not just you. And I guess that's the purpose of this, isn't it? If someone's going through that, they're going, oh, why is mine going up? We're literally here saying, I'm alive, subject, your clients are as well, and it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's another element as well, is when people start training intensely towards a specific goal, whether that's an endurance event, muscle building, losing fat, running, whatever it's going to be, nutrition plays a big part in it, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But getting people used to, you're going to need to eat more or you're going to need to eat less, depending on what the goal is. And a lot more times than not, I'll have clients come to me, new clients and people that generally just want some information and say, Jack, I want to lose fat. I want to see my abs. I want to do this. Fantastic. How much calories, how many grams of protein are you having per day? Oh, I'm not sure. That's fine. I'm not expecting you to know off the top of your head. My best recommendation for you is to download MyFitnessPal, track what you're eating for the next 5 days. Don't change anything about your diet, because that is sort of not exactly a fair assessment of what you're eating. So don't change your diet. Track for 5 days. That will be what your daily consumption is. Protein-wise, calories, carbs, fats. Then calculate what your BMR needs to be, so your basal metabolic rate, essentially how many calories you burn at rest. And then they apply a multiplication factor. So it depends how active you are, depends on your height, weight, and a few other different factors. And then it will spit out a number and say, this is the number you need to eat calories-wise to maintain weight, increase weight, or be in a calorie deficit. And then slowly get your intake, not immediately. So for example, if you're eating 1,500 calories a day and it says you need to be eating 3,000 calories a day, don't just jump to 3,000 calories, because that's going to be a lot of food very, very quickly, but just slowly build up over the weeks. Add an extra 250, 300 calories a day, slowly build up so you arrive there nice and gently rather than jumping straight away. And that's probably one of the best pieces of advice I can give for that.
And it's 250 of the right calories as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's a slice of cake, or it's, I don't know, a couple of packs of nuts or something, it's like, get the right calories in.
Yeah, and there's an element of, most people in the gym, training wise, and the clients that I advise, is try and aim for between 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So I weigh about 77 kilos. So about 154 grams of protein per day is my minimum requirement to build muscle, sustain muscle, particularly whilst I'm training for endurance events. So around a pound per body weight, or 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram is what I recommend.
Yeah. Are there any things that you always prioritise in nutrition that you, so daily, can't do without?
Sure. So my non-negotiable is the protein, like I've just mentioned. So I'll always make sure I hit my protein target. My calories, because I've been training for so long, eating roughly the same thing most days, I tracked initially because I think it's important to understand what your intake is and what you're putting in your body. I then make sure that, depending on what I'm training for, like I mentioned, my endurance training has gone up now, so my calories therefore have also increased. That's a non-negotiable, is making sure that I'm hitting the calories, because I don't want to be in a position where I'm under-eating, because I'm not going to be fueled for my sessions.
So with that, then, are you kind of almost eating the calories back then? So if you went out and done the half marathon, would you try and eat those calories back to get up to where you need to be?
Absolutely, yeah. So one, it sort of replenishes the glycogen stores in your body, which is very important, but also because want to maintain the muscle mass that I've got and retain it as best I can, I'll continue to strength train, but also make sure protein consumption's there and the calories are backfilled from whichever event I did that day.
Okay.
So those are the things I focus on. I also supplement 5 to 10 grams of creatine per day. Like we mentioned, it's one of the most researched supplements in the world. Yeah. Highly recommend anyone to look into the effects and how it could potentially benefit your training. I also take magnesium before bed, as I found that helps with sleep quality and sleep duration as well.
Yeah.
So as the training ramps up then for the 70.3, how is that going to affect your nutrition? Especially while training, obviously got this carbs, got the gels to think about. How does that kind of change your thought process?
Sure. So I'm fairly new to the whole endurance, nutrition, fueling side of things, because the longest event I did was the 3-peak challenge, but because it was a long periods of rest in between, we were just sort of eating normally. And then for the marathon, I tried gels for the first time. So because this is going to be 6 hours potentially for the 70.3, I'm not too sure what my times are. I'm not too fixated on a time, to be honest. I just want to complete it for my first one. It will be a case of, as I go through training, understand what works for me. I've seen things online to say 60 to 90 grams per hour. So based off the last podcast we had, I did just order the 90 gram precision gels, because my friend and I, my best friend, he's also doing the Ironman 70.3 with me. We're cycling around the Isle of Wight this weekend. So we thought, my longest ride was about 40k. So we thought, naturally, let's progressive overload and just do 103 k's around. But we're going to break that up throughout the day. So just do it in chunks to understand, how that will impact our body and how fueling comes into that. So we're going to try the 90 grams an hour, see how that goes. Mix between the gels and the food, see what works well for my body. Because a lot of it is trial and error and understanding what works for you might not work for me. Yeah. And then I think it'll be hire a coach in May to help me understand how I can optimize my training, because I ultimately want to do the strength training alongside the 70.3, but there's also an element of you can't be doing everything and expect progress in all elements. You can't spread yourself too thin because you'll just burn out. So it's like, how do I optimize this and say, I want to do this, I want to, you know, maintain muscle as best I can, but also maintain the strength for other areas of my life, my job. But then also I want to be able to, you know, run a half marathon after cycling 90 kilometers. So there's a few different tenets, and it's just a learning process, you know.
I don't know if you've done it, we're not plugging precision here, but on their website they've got a calculator that you can do, and it tells you what you need to be consuming per hour.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you go on their precision website, and it'll give you your race sort of plan. Great company.
So off your recommendation, I just ordered 10 of those gels from Amazon, and me and my friend will try them out this weekend.
I don't think that's bad. So for me, thinking about that out loud, it's 10 gels, it's 10 hours worth of fuel there for 42 quid.
It's not bad. Not bad. And because we'll be doing I think to do 103 kilometers, we're planning like 6-7 hours just to be conservative, because we'll have coffee breaks, I'm sure, because I love a note flat white, having 3 or 4 of those throughout the day. So we're breaking up through the day. How are you feeling? Yeah, good, pretty tired, you know, slowly iterating that. And that's just the whole process, I think.
And also solid foods with you.
Yeah, so we're going to take some like carb bars as well. So just mix between the solids and the liquids to understand, because they might not agree with your stomach either. No. There's also an element of, because it's so far, it would be good to understand, you know, at what point your body really feels that it needs to stop. And then next time you do a long endurance ride, it's that progressive overload and say, maybe I can push that a little bit further. But yeah, the Isle of Wight route's meant to be really good. So we'll give that a spin.
Baby potatoes, mate. That's my go-to.
Baby potatoes?
Salted baby potatoes.
Is that what you have?
Did you carry them in a little something bag?
No way. That's hilarious.
Seriously. I think we had Rob on, didn't we? Is that on the podcast? You said about someone had a baguette in their bike,
chomping on that like an apple.
Baguette.
Wow.
In their
on that, I've tried the first 2 sims, jam sandwiches. Then I did Biscoff sandwiches, white bread. You know, like the whitest of breads.
The Hovis.
Yeah. And then I remember that the 50 last year, one of the things that saved me was salted nuts. And so at my third sim, I got a pack of salted nuts. That said, it was so hard not to eat the whole pack of nuts in the first 2 hours, because you know what salted nuts are like. They're so Moorish, aren't they? So it's like, you need to split them out. But yeah, I mean, you touched on it. You have to train with it. Don't turn up to rest day and do something new for the first time.
I've tried all sorts of magical stuff, you know, like say jam sandwiches, but
magical,
crushing them down into like, you know, Cadbury cream egg size, and just having like loads of them in your back
like
pocket,
a little energy
you know,
nugget.
Like, keep literally snacking, and that's it. Is not kind of fatiguing out nutrition wise. Not trying to get it back.
I think one of the things that Darren said to me when he was coaching me last year for my ultras was, you have one job to do today. You've done the training now. You know, the fitness is in there, the mental side's there. Your main job over however long it's going to take you is to fuel. If you fuel, you will get to the finish line no matter what. And that's not just through the carbohydrates for the glycogen, it's for the electrolytes through the salts as well, to replenish that. But you have one job today, and it's to fuel yourself. You know, if you feel like you can't get that gel in, get it in. If you feel like you can't put that banana in, put it in. You know, that is your only job today, because you've done the training now, and you're here to basically fuel. Yeah,
and that's really, really good advice, because coming into this quite fresh and not having much experience with the nutrition side of things, it's about knowing what you haven't done before, what your weaknesses are, and, you know, developing it from there. And naturally, over the course of the 4 or 5 months training, the knowledge will grow, and hopefully I can then disseminate that knowledge into other people. But I think there's a rhetoric online at the moment where a lot of people are training for so many different things, and it's about, like, there's people running across the whole of Africa, and there's people doing 10 Ironmans in 10 days, which is amazing. And it's just about understanding, you know, what do you want to do, and what are your limitations? Because I think there's a big thing, and I myself have been guilty of it before, where comparison is the thief of joy. And I look at them and say, I'm doing a 70.3, but they've done a full Ironman, and that's amazing, and I really want to do that. And I read this amazing book, which I mentioned last time. It's called The Power of Now. And essentially, the message of the book is to say, appreciate where you are today, because a lot of people in this world are always focused on the next job, the next car, the next goal, the next PB. But actually, where you are today is where you want it to be 5 years ago. So just really appreciate that and take that time.
Yeah, I had that moment last night in the run club that we're doing with a local home and park health club. That the lady there was like, "Oh, I'm not good enough." It's like, you're here. You know, just take this moment. Like, you just this is it. You know, forget where you want to be in 5 years' time, or but next week you're here today. There's other people that are not. You know, take that moment and enjoy that, and it goes a long way. That.
And there's a saying: no matter how slow you run, you're always faster than the version of yourself that stayed home. Which I said last time, and I'll say it again this time. It's extant, and it's so true.
I do have to have a bit of banter with my uncle because he's a bike bandit and he's
Motorcycle or
no,
like a cycle,
cycling, yeah. And he must be. I'm going to probably offend him now. He's probably 60. I don't know. Maybe he's not. But he, like, when I go out with him and his mates, but they're cyclists. Oh my god, I feel like an amateur when they're going up the hills. But I do tell them all when we get to the top, when I eventually catch them up. If we were on feet now, I'd be leaving you for dead.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Their thing is cycling, my thing is running.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't compare myself to getting at the top of the hill with them on, 2 wheels. Like they shouldn't compare themselves to me on feet. Like last night when I sprinted up the hill to get to the top to get a picture, and I look back and it's like, yeah, none of them should be comparing themselves to me because it's the 10,000 hours thing, isn't it? When they get to their 10,000 hours, if I decided, right, cycling's my thing, 10,000 hours, I'll be at the top of the hill with them, but it's not my thing. And I think it's so easy because I know what you're saying, lads, that we want to have a good upper body, good chest, but that isn't helping me running. And you've got to really, really, tune into that and understand that you have to have your why and stick to your why. Your why can change,
Absolutely.
but don't expect to be doing the things that you're doing when you had this why as you've got on this why.
Yeah,
It's
and
completely different.
Exactly, and it's just the 10,000 hour rule is great. If you see someone that does an Ironman in 12 hours or something like that, you'd think, wow, that's amazing. You look at that and think, wow, why am I not doing that? It's like you've not seen the thousands of hours that they've put into training for that one photo you see on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it's going to be. And it's like, don't compare someone's final product when you're just starting out. And it's, like I mentioned earlier, the journey is so important.
And it's your journey as well.
And your journey,
isn't it? It's not. It's not the same.
And we talk about how privileged it is to be able to do what we do, and you talk about the 25 hours or whatever you said in a day. When people ask me why I do what I do, it's like, because I can. I'm able to. Because at some point, I don't know, 50 years on, I ain't going to be able to do this. So,
I reckon you'll still be running 100 miles.
Yeah, I probably will. I'm going to be that guy with a beard who's limping over the finish line.
He's going to have some age category wins, definitely.
That'd be like the 50,000 hours though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but exactly that is what a blessing to be tired by a pursuit of your choosing. Because like you mentioned, we're not always going to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And whilst we can, we just absolutely should.
Absolutely, mate.
And I think there's a fine line there between people overdoing things and burning out. It's a blessing because I get 2 hours sleep at night. No, that's not healthy. It's not going to work. You've got to balance these things, haven't you?
100%.
So obviously with nutrition, Jack, a lot of what we do is based around fueling ourselves. Do you ever have cheat days? Do you let yourselves off? Do you drink alcohol? Is that something that plays a role in your life? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think that there's a really, really good rule. That's the 80-20 rules. 80% of the time you follow your strict regime, training plan, diet. 20% of the time you can be a bit more relaxed. Because personally, I don't really believe in cheat days. I think it teaches not very good eating practices. I think that if you do really well for five and a half days of the week, you can then gorge out for the other day and a half, when actually there's a real beauty in building in the tolerance through the week. So a lot of the things I say to my clients is, if you're got a big weekend coming up, you're going out for a meal with the family, you're going to go out and do whatever you're going to do, build in the deficit through the week. So have an extra 100, 150 calories reduction each day, building that tolerance, because the thought of going out and not being able to enjoy yourself because you're going to go over on your calories is just not healthy at all. So building in those tolerances. I myself, like I mentioned, Monday to Friday, basically eat the same thing for the breakfast and lunches. That's one of the best things that I can recommend. Doesn't have to be the exact same thing every single day, but rotate through similar meals where the macros, the protein, that it's within your targets. And then on Fridays, a non-negotiable for my fiance and I is a Nando's. So our Nando's order, I get 4 boneless chicken thighs plus 2 extra boneless chicken thighs, so 6 thighs total. 3 chickens had to die for my Nando's, which is great. And then I have broccoli and peri salted chips, which I share with my girlfriend, so she'll get 4 thighs, so that's 10 thighs total. Fiance. Yeah. Thank you. And we'll share the sides, because there's too many chips for me. I can't eat them all. So half chips, half broccoli, and that's what we do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's go to some quick fire.
Yeah, quick fire.
These are quick fire round, okay?
Yeah.
Fire.
I'll try my best to stick to the quick fire.
So one habit that's changed your life.
The phones. Like, as soon as you wake up, first 30 minutes of the day, do not check your phone. The last 30 to 45 minutes of the day before bed, do not check your phone. If you didn't action it through the day, just leave it to the next day, because it gives you so much more freedom at the start and the end of the day to be with yourself, your thoughts, your family. That's the best piece of advice I could give.
Yeah.
I only use that myself because I'm guilty. Big time.
It's interesting though, on a day that I don't run and I walk, I do a 1 mile walk, which takes me about 15 minutes. I do more voice noting and catching up with stuff in that 15 minutes walking than I can do in the rest of the day. So I don't do it every day, because on the days that I run, as I say, it's in the pocket, I'm listening to a book or I'm listening to my thoughts. But on the days that I do go for a walk, it's probably my most productive 15 minutes of the day.
Yeah.
So it's just challenging people to try what you're saying, but also try something else, isn't it?
Yeah.
If the spaghetti doesn't stick on the wall with this format, try a different format.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be for 30 minutes, you know.
No.
First 5 to 10 minutes,
Yeah,
turn your
it can be
alarm
that.
off, just get up, walk around the house.
I
get
do
some
like the
fresh
one,
air,
the brushing the teeth one you said earlier, though.
Brushing the
after,
teeth, yeah.
After you brush your teeth, turn them off.
turn them off, connect with your partner.
I'm all right in
connect
the
with your
morning,
kids.
see, but night time I'm terrible.
Yeah.
So I literally go, good night.
Yeah.
That's me. But in the mornings, I go for a walk and whatever,
Yeah.
or a run, and I don't touch my phone for at least an hour.
Yeah.
But night time,
Yeah,
that's where I need to improve.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I have quite a few habits to sort of divert a little bit from the quick fire. Is one of the main habits is like bulk cooking at the start of the week to save yourself as much time as you can. So for example, on a Monday, I'll cook like a chili con carne is what we call it, and then she'll cook fajitas on a Tuesday, and then we'll cook enough for double the amount of meals. So as you progress through the week, you just reheat what you had at the start. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, the phone thing is invaluable.
That is similarly back to the quick fire, though, because it's a habit that's changed your life.
Yeah.
The bulk cooking is a habit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good habit stack. So, yeah. Jack, what is the hardest physical challenge that you've endured so far?
I would say it's a front runner between the Three Peaks Challenge in the UK, just because I'd not trained for it, conditioned for it or anything like that, or the marathon again, because the training I did up to it, I think I ran maximum 19 miles, and I thought, it's only an extra 7 miles. It can't be that much harder. And I know I'm sat in the room with 2 ultra endurance athletes, but those 7 miles for someone that wasn't conditioned for it, oh my God, it was a real humbling experience. So I would think those
long
two.
7 miles then.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
to the future, I think the run from Edinburgh to Hereford is going to be pretty spicy. The 70.3 and then inevitably the Ironman after that will be
Cool.
quite challenging.
I think we should go away from this today and we find one activity that's going to humble one of us in each different format.
Sure.
So you two are coming on an ultra marathon with me.
All right.
Darren's going to
a bike.
take us on a triathlon.
And I want to learn Spanish.
Let's
You wanna
Spanish.
learn Spanish.
See.
Okay, so Darren wants to learn Spanish. And what are you going to make us do?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I
I think we should have a conversation.
I've seen your Olympic
Yeah,
weightlifting.
you've seen my Olympic
we
weightlifting.
should either do some Olympic weightlifting, but I wouldn't say I'm good enough to be a front runner at a bus 3. I think we should speak Spanish. Hablamos
I was
español.
gonna-
So-
Yeah.
so-
I was going to say muscle up.
Muscle up, yeah. Muscle
Yeah,
up's
yeah.
pretty. Thing is, as well, I think with the muscle up, if you can do 5 strict pull-ups, you've got the strength required for a bar muscle up. After that, it's genuinely just a case of technique, like we mentioned. And a lot of people we have in the gym come in, we coach on Tuesday mornings, and they say I want to do a bar muscle up, and I'll get them to show me 5 pull-ups. Cool, you've got the strength, mate. It's just a case of engage the hips, think about the movement. And what a lot of people do is they revert to what they know. So in a bar muscle up, you want to keep your arms straight and pull down on the bar. But naturally, a lot of people will pull themselves up, and as soon as you have the arm bend early, there's no way you can get around the bar. So same with rings as well.
Accountability WhatsApp after this. We're going to be learning Spanish.
Yeah.
See, I realised I say I speak Spanish, but all I said is see.
Yeah, what else you got?
I'll give you a little Spanish line. So, he estado estudiando español para 5 o 6 meses porque mi madre viven en España y tengo 2 o 3 amigos que viven en Sudamérica.
Okay.
Okay. I basically said, thank you for having me.
No,
No.
that's impressive.
So,
That's good. Amazing. You've already said it, but let's get that book out there again. So that book, that's shaped your thinking a little bit. So
sure, yeah. So there's a couple of reads. So The Power of Now, again, really teaches you about to be present in the moment, appreciate what you've got, because everything you worked for has led to this moment that you're currently at, and everything you're working for today will lead to the future. But the whole point is to enjoy the whole process. Another one is for potential leaders and managers. It's called The 1 Minute Manager. Very, very short read. The title was quite appropriate, and it teaches you a few different things about efficiencies and ways and processes you can employ when you're managing people, utilizing their strengths, weaknesses, helping them with issues, redirects. Would highly recommend 1 Minute Manager.
Cool. Yeah, I've read that one. It's good.
Nice.
The last question then. What is one piece of advice for a young leader?
Never stop learning. Never stop learning, because the knowledge that you can gain from whatever endeavor you choose to pick, you can disseminate and empower your subordinates and team with that. Also, I think be open and be honest about what your strengths and weaknesses are. I think when I went into my role, my first leadership role, it's coming with an open sort of book to say, hi everyone, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. I don't really know how you do things here, but show that willingness to learn and adapt, and don't go in thinking, you run the place, because that's definitely not what happens.
Yeah.
You learn, you earn the respect, and that's the best way to do that.
Nice.
Cool. I think that wraps it up then. Thanks for coming on, Jack. I
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
It's been awesome.
Studio looks great, guys.
Yeah,
Studio looks
cheers.
great.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.